Freeze right there. That's this deck. It's all about freezing your opponent's allies using ice power to destroy your opponents and do it like that. So anyway, let's just hop into some games, and I'll just say right up front that this video took a while because I went through a lot of different iterations, and I do think this deck has some issues, and I'll go over what those issues are in a bit. But this is probably the best iteration of the deck I could come up with, and so yeah, let's just see how we do it here. So in this game, our opponent plays Stunning Swordswoman, a very good turn 2 drop. We respond with Frostflame Harpy, an excellent turn 2 drop there. For our sacrifices, we're just sacrificing duplicates. I did something I normally hate doing, which is sacrificing a Denizen. Here we go for the classic turn 3. Well, this is actually a turn 2 location with the Pathfinder's Machete. When you play Pathfinder's Machete while you control a location, it gets +1 attack and +1 durability. That's actually going to let us take out this Stunning Swordswoman with the Frostflame Harpy. So that's very nice here. Now, Pathfinder's Machete is a great weapon to run here because we do run a location. This is a location you don't see that much. It's called Lyth. Basically, the idea behind Lyth is that for every ice creature you control, you can target something on the board, and it takes 3 ice damage. So it gets a lot better when you have multiple ice allies out, and right now it's relatively weak. So yeah, that's what the location does. It just benefits from having ice allies. I chose not to sacrifice there because I like everything in my hand. I like the Denizen. Denizen is very important in this deck. Suspended animation could really save us if our opponent plays a ton of allies. And I want to save Bad Santa because it's our only draw right now. I'm happy to sacrifice the Yeti there. I don't think it's that useful unless the opponent has like some fatties out. Then I go ahead and use this card, Urigon's Fang. So, and now I think it's time to bring up one of the deck's issues. The issue is it's such a combo-heavy deck that you need like all these different cards to make everything work. Urigon's Fang is one of the combo pieces that you need. It says when an ally is frozen, it takes 1 damage. That's amazing. Also, when you damage a opposing ally with your in combat by your hero, so with your weapon, namely Pathfinder's Machete, it gets frozen. So not only does that freeze the opposing ally for a turn, it's kind of like an ankle breaker, it also will, because it's frozen, deal a damage. So Urigon's Fang is amazing, especially as we start freezing stuff with our other stuff that's out there. So now we're able to clear that Treasure Seeker out there, and yeah, we're in good shape here. Now, I think our opponent does something really good, which is eliminate both of our allies, basically. Denizen is another key card for us, but we weren't able to play it in this case. So here I make an interesting choice. I go for Suspended Animation instead of playing Bad Santa there. Arguably, I could have gone either way, but I don't want my opponent to draw cards because it looks like my opponent is struggling to draw too. Here, this is where Urigon's Fang makes a very strong combo with Rampaging Yeti. So Urigon's Fang, 2 Shadow Energy, you can freeze an opposing ally for 1 turn. Rampaging Yeti says when it's summoned, it gets haste while there's a frozen ally in play. Also, it kills any frozen ally it deals to combat damage to. So arguably I should have used Lyth on the Viper there. I guess I just wanted to save my Shadow Energy because I felt like saving Shadow Energy was really important, and I didn't feel like I needed to kill the Viper right away. Viper right now doesn't have quite enough health to withstand a counterattack, so that's why I chose to do that there. Here I actually do a misplay. I should have taken back control of the location first. But because, I played it first, I didn't get its +1 attack and +1 durability bonus. I kind of played it off, but yeah, that was definitely a misplay there. I should have done that differently. Anyway, it's still okay because this weapon is still basically like a mini ankle breaker. And this is where we're going to show off the location and why I really like saving up Shadow Energy. So we're going to use the non-controller to take back the location. And we have 1, 2, 3 ice allies out. So that means we can target 3 things and deal 3 ice damage to it. And I love this animation. I think it's one of the coolest animations in the game. It just drops some icicles down on our opponent. And yeah, so... From this position, I think I've just got total control, so it makes sense that our opponent surrendered there, but that's kind of when everything goes right. And you may have noticed there that our opponent missed their turn 3 play. So, yeah, definitely you do need a lot of things to go right in this kind of deck because of all the combos. And I'll just show you some of the other replays earlier. So I tried this with Gravebone, didn't work out as well, and some other builds. Let's go and view a game where it was, well, I wouldn't say that close, but it's a game against what is pretty much meta. So I think it can be useful to see how it goes. So here we start off with the Tome of Knowledge there. Our opponent goes and plays their Sandwing Hatchling, very strong card, because it can grow when they skip their sacrifice. So we still Bad Santa here, I think, because it's important to get card draw, but it is unfortunate that our opponent does get an extra draw off of that, and is also able to play a second Hatchling. So this is getting pretty scary here. I want to eliminate these if I can, but for now I'm just going to summon the Denizen. Denizen is a very, very good card. It basically, as your activated ability, you can freeze an opposing ally and freeze the Denizen itself. It also has a passive that's very strong. All opposing allies take 1 additional damage when they're frozen, and all of your friendly allies take 1 less damage when they are frozen. So it basically gets 1 damage reduction while you basically freeze something with this ability. It is a little fragile, only 5 health, but that is quite nice there. So I go ahead and freeze the scavenger, and it's really too bad I don't have the location here. I think if I had the location here, maybe things go a little bit differently, but because of the fact I don't have the location here, this weapon is pretty wimpy. So yeah, we go ahead and we lose the Denizen, which is really too bad. And then, of course, the opponent's weapon comes out. So honestly, not too much we can do here. Although we do have the suspended animations, which I elect not to use because I'm just going to bait out maybe another turn, try to set up a little bit more here. So that's why I go ahead and play the Living Ice Wall. Arguably, I probably should have played the suspended animation, but you know, the Grundler's Double is going to kill it anyway. So that's why I chose not to. We are going to take a large amount of face damage because of that decision. But it is going to mean that we have sort of a chance to make a comeback here. So what I'm going to do is now play the suspended animation now, freeze everything my opponent controls, play the Harpy, and now we can set up the Living Ice Wall to protect our 2 things. Now that everything's protected, I guess it makes sense that our opponent just goes face. So now we're on 1 health, which as soon as my opponent just gets another weapon, which is probably going to be pretty soon, that's going to be game over for us, but we have 1 more turn of suspended animation there. So I hope this is showing, even though we do ultimately lose this game, how there is this comeback potential with the suspended animation. You can lose the board early on, and then suspended animation to kind of freeze their whole board, and then hopefully take things back from there. So here I do a little bit of a misplay. What I should have done is I should have, before I activate Lyth, I should have used Frostflame Harpy on the Hatchling. That way I could target all 5 of his. I think I can kill this ally. It's not going to actually matter, but I could have killed this Hatchling had I dealt 3 damage to it with the Lyth, because then I have 3, 2, and 3 that would have killed the Hatchling. But as it stands, we let our opponent get away with this ridiculous ally, and of course they can kill us with our own card because of the Lyth non-controller ability. Okay, so that is an example of a game where it kind of shows how this deck, you know, it can struggle a little bit against a very aggressive deck. So that's that. And honestly, I think that's probably all I really want to show. I even tried an Elementalis freeze deck. So let's just go over the deck list, I guess, and I'll talk about some of the choices here. So Frostflame Harpy is a really nice just a generic 2-drop, but it actually synergizes quite well in this deck because it has Ice Attack and because the Denizen increases the damage to opposing allies by 1 when they're frozen. So this basically, it's 2 different pings, both get increased by 1. That means it could deal a total of 4 to a frozen ally in combination with the Denizen. So I think there's actually a lot of natural synergies with Harpy, and that's why I'm happy to run Harpy on 4. I'm running 4 Denizen. I really like how Denizen basically freezes an opposing ally, triggers everything in the deck. This might be the strongest card in the deck, honestly. Strongest out of the new cards that make this deck viable. Part of the thing that's making this deck viable is just the fact that there are more good ice attack allies. So Denizen is a good example of a very solid ally with ice attack. Rampaging Yeti, I've kind of been a little mixed on. I think it's not that good, actually. I would almost remove it or take it down, but I guess I like having new cards in the deck. The reason I don't like Rampaging Yeti is the fact that it's only 3 attack and 4 health. That's like pretty low stats, actually. If it was like a standard 4-cost ally, it would have 3 attack and usually 5 health would be the standard stat line. So it has got below average stats. Now, true, it gets haste. So haste is always very strong, but you need to freeze an opposing ally. So it's a very conditional haste that's hard to trigger when you're like coming back from behind. And its ability is quite strong. You can deal combat damage to a frozen ally and kill it immediately, instantly. But the downside is that your weapons all lose 1 durability. So it's got a lot of downsides, and it's not feeling great to play, honestly. So, very cool card, but I think a little weak. Frosted Urigon is kind of just a curve topper for us. What I do really like about Frosted Urigon is that when it deals combat damage to an ally, it can actually freeze that ally for 1 turn. And so it's really nice when you can get it on the board and basically keep freezing your opponent's allies every turn. But I do think that most opponents are not going to let this live. So there is that consideration too. 2 Bad Santas, I think this deck, I kind of really struggled on finding draw for this deck. So to jump ahead a little bit, that's why I settled on 4 Tome of Knowledge. I think we just need draw in this deck, and this deck really lacks draw options. So I always want to see Tome. I think that's why I'm running 4, and a lot of people choose to run 3 so it doesn't brick you, but I think because it's basically our only draw engine of the deck, we've got to run 4. Force Suspended Animation. This has consistently been one of my favorite cards to play around with. I've made a lot of videos with this card, and this one is no exception. Just being able to freeze everything your opponent controls and enabling everything basically is very, very nice. Urigon's Fang. This is another key card. Now, yes, you can only have one of these in play at once, but it's so important to see this that I decided to run it on 4, and that way you just have a much higher chance of always seeing it. 3 Living Ice Walls. I do like this card in combination with Denizen, especially because then you can give it 1 damage reduction. It's also a frozen ally that also triggers Yeti, so that's quite nice. And it's very good against Zaladar and Banebo and a lot of things that need to target 2 things at once. Also can take up crippling blows and stuff, so a solid card all around, but I don't want to run multiple because one of my favorite things to do is play this on turn 3 and not activate it right away. But then it can brick if you have multiple copies in hand, so that's why I only run 3. 1 Stun Turret. Now, the only reason to run Stun Turret, in my opinion, is, well, Shroud, but we don't actually really care about Shroud that much in this deck, because we already have Harpy to deal with Shroud, and also Suspended Animation doesn't target, so I think Shroud is less of an issue in this deck. The main issue is cards that can't be frozen, namely Dakwrath. It's an instant lose if you encounter Dakwrath, so basically Stun Turret is just there so that matchup isn't an instant loss. For Pathfinder's Machete, I think these 2 cards are really good in combination with each other, and so on turn 2 you can drop this, and then or turn 3 really, and then get a solid location. The weapon synergizes super well with Urigon's Fang. It gets really high stats, disables stealth, And then Lyth is a pretty neat location to run in this style of deck because we run so many ice attack allies. In fact, we only run ice attack allies. So it can get really, really strong quite quickly. Now, I will talk a little bit now about why I chose Lyth. One of the things that I really struggled with for this deck is finding a hero, because actually none of the hero powers synergize that well with the ice strategy. Because of the fact that Icebound Denizen is a shadow ally and Rampaging Yeti is also a shadow ally, actually we can't run this in Eladwin, and that's really unfortunate because of the fact that Eladwin would synergize perfectly with this kind of strategy. But because these are shadow allies, they actually don't synergize. You can't play them in the same deck as Eladwin, and Majiya has a good power and all, but it doesn't help the ice strategy that much. It's just like a random hero power. So that's why I felt like the hero power selection for us is not that strong, and that's what's letting us use Lyth, I think. Because of the fact that our hero power is kind of mediocre, because it's just not synergizing with our deck very much, Lyth kind of replaces the hero power with better hero power. It now lets us basically have an improved Zaladar, a much improved Zaladar in certain situations. So that's why I think Lyth is fine to run here. The only downside really is that you lose some card advantage when you play it. So yeah, I'm kind of mixed on this one, but I liked it better than my original build. So I'll tell you what my original build was. Originally I was playing, what's the name? Voice of Winter. Now, Voice of Winter is a fine way to play this deck, but the problem with Voice of Winter is that like your Yeti basically reduces your weapon durability by 1 whenever it kills something. So, like, it's got this huge anti-synergy. And yes, we still have anti-synergy here between Pathfinder's Machete and Yeti, but at least you're not investing 5 resources into Voice of Winter only to whittle down the durability on your own. The other part of it is that Voice of Winter, like I would often find myself wanting to attack with Urigon's Fang, and needing to preserve the durability on Voice of Winter is just another thing that kind of was really annoying to deal with. So that's why I went with a cheaper weapon. And then finally, I think right now we're in kind of like a meta where like the early game matters a lot, and I just feel like waiting until turn 5 to play Voice of Winter is kind of too late because your opponent will already have basically taken control of the board in like a slower Voice of Winter deck, and then like you can try to recover, but everything costs too much. Here, Pathfinder's Machete can give you a real chance to fight back because it only costs 3 and just requires so much less investment to make it go live. We freeze so much with our other stuff, like Urigon's Fang, and then attacking with Pathfinder's Machete freezes. Our Denizens are constantly freezing our opposing allies. And then a suspended animation is always freezing stuff. So I do think that we have enough freeze in the deck to get away with not needing Voice of Winter. Anyway, yeah, that's all I have. In terms of this deck, I do think it needs too many things to go right to do well, but it is a very fun deck. I will say that. When everything comes together and then you can use Lyth, and really this card has one of the best animations in the game. I do really enjoy playing this deck. I do think it needs like something maybe a little better. Maybe some of these cards can be buffed. Like maybe Yeti can be buffed a little bit, at least getting 1 more health, or maybe losing this, making your weapons lose a durability thing. Maybe Denizen could also get an extra health. And that's actually what it was on the test server, I will say. So I do think these 2 cards were over nerfed, and as a result, it's really hard to kind of bring this deck to like a competitive-ish level. That said, it is still a lot of fun to play. So let me know what you think of this deck in the comments below, and thanks for watching.